Hello everyone, Storm 101 here. Today we'll be tracking a system that could bring in a lot of issues, like possibly an ice storm, a winter storm across these regions right in here, especially a little bit further north. We could also see flash flooding potential across some of these regions right in here that could see a lot of rain, and also the severe weather potential that could also happen across some of these regions right in here as well, and maybe including portions of these areas as well. We'll be talking about all these in this video, but first, let's take a look into my snowfall forecast for the first storm, which is going on right now, which I did make an update yesterday, and I did upload it onto Twitter. If you guys want to follow me on Twitter, it is at TyStorm101. I think it's the name there. But anyways, this is the updated forecast here. Got the 5 to 8 inches across central and eastern Nebraska, going on across southeastern Iowa, with an 8 to plus inch range, and even extending into several portions of Wisconsin and northwestern portions of Illinois there as well. And still, again, 3 to 5 inches is going to be likely across these regions, although some will see less than 3 inches, some can see greater than 5 inches of snow. So that's the snowfall forecast there. So that's out of the way there. Let's talk about our system here. So this is the high-res Canadian model. This model does a pretty good job. Now, we're going to have a cold front that be coming in. So your cold front is really basically like right here. So this is your cold front right here. We're going to have a low that moves into the Arctic region. This low right here will move to the northeast here with a trailing front here. This is eventually going to be becoming stationary, and perhaps on the just on the back edge of this moisture here, there could be a mix of freezing rain with maybe a little bit of snow and probably some sleet there as well. As we continue on, you can see what I'm talking about there. You can see here, chance of snow, freezing rain across portions, pretty much along the Ohio River here across portions of Kentucky, Illinois, Indiana, even back into Ohio, portions of Pennsylvania. That's not going to stick around long there as well. Oh, I never seen that before. UnDF, I've never seen that before. Just to let you guys know about that. I have no idea what that means. But anyways, here, this love's going to be tracking into the Arctic region, and it's going to start to intensify a little bit. This model here shows it really around 1,000 millibars. But then, your severe weather threat really starts to come into play across portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, into Alabama, maybe portions of Arkansas there as well. Meanwhile, on the backside, you got a nasty mix of freezing rain, sleet, and snow. Meanwhile, freezing rain going on across portions of Oklahoma, eventually getting into Missouri there as well. And you can see here, it starts to get pretty nasty with that freezing rain. And if this is correct, we can see ice accumulations probably as high as a half an inch of ice, which is a crazy amount of ice there. Meanwhile, severe weather should be ongoing. Unfortunately, this is going to be happening over 9 hours, so you can see this is 12Z, so this is early in the morning here. Probably I'll say around 6 or 7 a.m. And we got severe thunderstorms going on across portions of Mississippi, Alabama, eventually getting up into Tennessee and maybe into Kentucky here as well. And you can see here how those supercells or severe thunderstorms really start to continue to the east here. Now they'll be dying down. Here's what, as you can tell there, especially when we get to the afternoon hours on Friday there as well. And you can see here, even later down the road, there could be another chance of more ice across portions of the northeastern United States. Meanwhile, across some of these regions, across portions of Great Lakes, and also the Midwest, experiencing a decent amount of snow, which these guys are just getting hit by quite a bit of snow right now, and even a little bit of ice there as well. And they could see another winter storm out of this. The potential is there. But probably the next area to watch for is going to be the northeast because there could be the possibility for some more ice there. Let's take a look into those snowfall amounts there, spinning out by the high-res Canadian here. Now, so from the first round, 6-7 inches of snow, and then you start to add on top of to the next round here. So subtract is about 6 to 7 inches of snow. This is what you would get here, and not a whole lot. This is about 4 to 5 inches of snow, but this is the total amount of snow. Keep in mind here. So this is snowfall totals here. And you can see a pretty good swath of snow over the next 84 hours there across some of those regions there. And from the first round, 7 to 8 inches of snow, and then the second round can be 4 to 5 inches of snow. All this up here is from the first event. So, but this here is from the secondary event. Right down across here. You can see across central Oklahoma, eventually getting into southeastern Kansas, portions of Missouri, and even getting down into central Texas there, seeing anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 inches of snow. And there could be some isolated areas, but I think that's going to be the general amount across some of those regions there as well. Meanwhile, there could be some ice issues there as well. So again, I'll probably say it could be as high as a half an inch of ice here. And as you can see here, a lot of ice going on here. Anywhere from central Texas through central Oklahoma, most of Missouri, Michigan into Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and then a second round of ice kind of comes in across portions of the interior northeast here as well. But again, these are not accurate snow ice amounts. In my opinion, probably the highest snow ice amounts, especially across these regions here, this would be the main area of focus. Let me actually put that in a different color. So this will be the main area of focus for ice is right here because models are just definitely showing a chance of just heavy freezing rain across these regions here. And ice amounts probably could be as high as a half an inch, but there is also a chance this will transition back to rain. So it could be only happening for a few hours till it starts to transition over back to rain. And eventually it'll go back to below freezing temperatures there as well. There's still some uncertainties across the northeast, so we won't really talk much about that just yet. But an ice storm threat is definitely there across a good chunk of these regions right in here, especially across Missouri and Illinois. That's an area to watch there as well. So let's take a look into the Canadian model. Another good model to use. You can see here, there goes your first system going by that would jack out into the eastern portions of Canada. And then eventually, here comes your cold front right here, which eventually will turn stationary here. And this low here will move up along the front, move something like this here, move for the Arctic region there as well. As we kind of move on, you can see here, there goes your low for the Arctic region. Meanwhile, in the warm sector, you've got severe weather. Meanwhile, across portions of the Arctic region, you got flash flooding issues. Here, you got ice starting to develop here. And as we kind of continue to play this, you can see here, it is just showing just heavy ice across Missouri, Illinois, maybe even to northern Indiana there. But again, these are to be the areas to definitely watch for there as well for that ice potential. I think that's the biggest concern than anything else out of this. Although severe weather will be the secondary main concern here. As you can see your supercells or a squall line of thunderstorms along the weak cold front will be advancing eastward there as well. Now this is the snowfall totals from the Canadian model. As you can see here, snowfall amounts could be anywhere from 5 to maybe 8 inches of snow. Could be a little bit overdone with the snowfall amounts, but you can see here, there is some uncertainties across west central Texas here, especially across this region right here. So I've highlighted right here. You can see here, when we looked into the high-risk Canadian, it shows 1 to 3 inches. Meanwhile, this model here shows nothing. So still some high uncertainties here, but there could be a chance you guys can at least see a coating of snow across those regions there. Meanwhile, across southwestern Texas, seeing quite a bit of snow there as well. And looks, oh yeah, I was getting ready to say if this here doesn't even have ice or not. So this is the ice accumulation forecast from the Canadian model here. And as you can see here, very heavy ice across these regions right in here, especially across Missouri, Illinois, even getting back across portions of central Texas and Oklahoma. And you can see here comes your next round of ice across those regions there. But again, likely these ice amounts will be overdone. I think it's going to be as high as at least a half an inch of ice. There could be some isolated areas I can see higher amounts, especially if you're going to be in the freezing rain most of the time. But generally, most of these regions here will eventually change over to rain. So really the main area of focus will be across northern Illinois and northern Missouri there as well, which I know some of you guys are probably experiencing some ice right now just by the first system. So, and you can see here showing up to an inch of ice across these regions, but again, it's overdone as always there. Here's the GFS model here. As you can see here, here's your cold front. Now for areas across, Kentucky, Indiana, and Ohio, with that rain snow line, it's really going to depend how far south this cold front's going to be. If this cold front's going to be this far south, your rain snow line will be further south. If it's further north, it's going to be further north as well, which I'm sure some people probably ask questions about that. So it's really going to depend on how far south the cold front's going to be. Then here comes your low pressure system. 996 millibars, definitely stronger than what the other models are showing. Not as much ice than what some of the other models are showing. You can see here's some ice going on across northern Missouri, central Illinois, getting into central Indiana and Ohio. Heavy snow going on across portions of Kansas and Oklahoma there as well. And you can see it really gets going with that snow there. Meanwhile, in the warm sector, you got severe weather ongoing. Now, what I've learned here is usually if you see streaks like this right here of rain, this means really supercells that can happen here, or discrete supercells here as well. That's always what one meteorologist said. Typically, if you get storms that look like this here, typically those can mean supercells. There's what is shown by one of the models. So there's a chance that we can see supercells there, but there's also a chance, this could just be a squall line of storms. So, but we'll have a little bit more details on that. But you can see there goes the GFS model in. You see your ice storm threat may continue into the interior northeast. Let's talk about that rain. And this is the Weather Prediction Center for the next 5 days. You can see where you can see rainfall amounts, in the yellows, that is 4 to 6 inches of rain. So that's a lot of rain for a short period of time. Let's get this going here with the pen. You can see here, rainfall amounts could be anywhere from 3 to maybe 5 inches, some isolated areas as well. This will definitely be an area to watch running these regions here that could see a lot of rain. You can see here 2 to 3 inch amounts can go as far northeast as into Kentucky and around Cincinnati there as well. So this will definitely be something we have to pay attention to, and these regions here definitely need to watch for that rain there as well. Here's the high risk Canadian. You can see it showing higher rainfall amounts. Spinning out some areas can see up to 6 inches of rain. And here's the NAM. It's showing some areas could approach 7 inches of rain, but I think that's going to be overdone. But the general idea here is there's going to be a flash flood threat, and we're pretty confident about that. There's not a whole lot of uncertainty with those rainfall amounts. I mean, it has a little bit of a range, but area-wise, we have a pretty good idea where the flash flood threat is going to be. So if you guys are, portions of Arkansas, southeastern Oklahoma, and eventually getting into northeastern Texas. Gotta watch for that flash flood threat because there's definitely looking to be a lot of rain coming. Alright, so the last, well, maybe not the last part of the video, but let's talk about the severe weather threat. So this is later tonight. We got a marginal risk across western Texas, southwestern Oklahoma. Primary threats are going to be, well, the primary threats looking to be some hail in there. Here's day 2, which is tomorrow. We got a marginal risk for severe weather across southeastern Texas. There could be a low-end tornado threat, especially along the coast. Similar way for damaged winds, but hail does extend a little bit further inland. Here's day 3, which is Thursday. We got a slight risk for severe weather anywhere from eastern Texas through southeastern Louisiana, eventually getting into southern Mississippi, and eventually getting into Alabama. These are the areas I could see the potential for some damaging winds, possibly some isolated tornadoes in these regions there as well. And eventually getting into day 4, we got a slight risk for severe weather across east central Georgia and central South Carolina and getting into portions of North Carolina there as well. My thoughts really, I don't really see this being quite a favorable environment for, slight risk wise, but that's definitely surprising in my opinion there. I think there's a little bit of lower chance for severe weather across those regions there compared to day 3. So just to keep in mind of that. Don't be surprised if an enhanced risk if we do see an enhanced risk upgrade if this trend continues from the models, which I'll show you guys that. So this is the NAM. Let me zoom this out a little bit. So again, this is the NAM. This is composite reflectivity. So here you go here. You start to see at the bottom of your screen here some discrete supercells could develop across, several Arkansas, Louisiana there. And you can see some of those thunderstorms really started to get going. We're right now in the middle of the night. And this is like 3 a.m. Eastern time. And we got pretty good thunderstorms ongoing across Mississippi, eventually getting into Alabama. And as we get into early Friday morning, look at those thunderstorms there. I mean, those are some pretty healthy thunderstorms there. Some of these could be rotating here. And eventually, this is going to be moving to the east and northeast here. And it's going to be expanding into coverage here. And as you can see here, and this is the bad news here, we get a little bit of a dry slot right in here. So if the sun comes out, if the sun starts shining, instability is going to be increasing here. And that can bring a pretty good advantage to these thunderstorms, but the models do predict that it'll die down as it moves a little bit further to the east. And this is early Friday afternoon. And as you can see here, you got some thunderstorms anywhere from, could be as far north as Kentucky, all the way down across Tennessee and down into Alabama. Not as impressive there. And then the NAM model is starting to spit out here. Behind this line here of storms, there's going to be a pretty favorable environment really across these regions right here, across a good chunk of Kentucky, Tennessee. My question is any storms going to fire along the cold front? You're going to have temperatures in really ranging from the 60s to the 70s. Dew points could be around 60 degrees. There's, well, instability, a high wind shear environment. Definitely a favorable environment for severe weather, but the question is any storms going to develop on a cold front because it's still back here. And as you can see from the NAM, it says yes. We can see a skinny line of thunderstorms here. And that'd be something we have to pay attention to there as well, because there is going to be a favorable environment for more severe weather if any storms do form along that cold front there, which I'll show you guys the ingredients here of what's spinning out from the NAM. So one of the ingredients we should probably take a look into is the low level jet, 850 millibars. And this is what we call wind energy. And as we kind of continue on here, as it starts to load in, You can see here, here comes your low across central Texas and, well, eastern Texas into Oklahoma. And look at these winds here. I mean, this level of a jet's pretty strong. You got as high as 82 knots. That's equivalent to 85 to 90-mile-an-hour winds there from the low of a jet. And keep in mind, this is not, you know, surface winds. That'd be ridiculous. And you can see here, here's your cold front right here. If any thunderstorms that do get into the atmosphere, this high here to the low of a jet, which thunderstorms may have a hard time doing so because of these strong winds, it'll have a hard time having it with those updrafts. But if it does make it, that's high in the atmosphere where you have winds as high as 67 knots, which is 70 miles an hour. Sometimes those could come down to the surface and you could potentially see wind gusts of 70 miles an hour across these regions here if the thunderstorm can get that high. That's the big question. Here comes your cold front right here. You can see here we got winds as high as 62 knots. That is severe weather territory, severe thunderstorm territory there as well. And that'll be something to pay attention to here as well. And sometimes these type of setups could be a little bit sneaky, especially along the cold front here. This is like a Ohio Valley type of event here as well. And typically with these type of setups here, it could be a little bit sneaky and they can produce some widespread damage of winds. Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. These setups are typically pretty hard to predict there as well. And probably the next one, we'll probably skip some of the ingredients, but we'll kind of take a look to some of the main ingredients. Lap rates is looking quite interesting here. These lap rates is going to help thunderstorms build here. Higher the numbers, the better environment for thunderstorms there is. So, as you can see here, as we kind of get into Friday evening, generally above 7 degrees Celsius, that's favorable for some severe weather. And as you can see here, as we get to Friday, 21Z here, which is Friday afternoon, here comes your cold front right here, which is right here. You got pretty favorable lap rates behind that, above a 7. You still got some decent lap rates right in here, out ahead of the cold front, so it could be a little bit favorable for some thunderstorms here. You can see here, it does increase there with those numbers, and that'd be something to pay attention to there as well. But if we focus a little bit further back to the south here, with some of these lap rates here, especially in the warm sector of all things, it's not that favorable there as well. Most of your higher lap rates are actually behind the front there as well. So this is mixed layer cave here. So this is kind of like in the mid levels of the atmosphere here. It's actually near ground there. A little bit of correction there. And as you can see here, not a whole lot of instability to talk about. You can see here pretty decent numbers, as high as getting close to 1,000 across portions of south central Mississippi, which will get a sounding across those regions there. And as you can see here, taking a look into this here, you can see with your lap rates is just right down here. Not really good numbers here. I mean, generally 6 to 6.5 degrees Celsius. That's not that favorable for some severe weather. Although you got a good amount of wind shear, however. I mean, especially at the surface here. I mean, 45 knots. That's a lot of wind shear. Temperatures 68 degrees with a dew point of 67 degrees. Pretty favorable environment. That's like, I mean, with dew points that high, that's like summertime feel there as well. Your critical angle number is also pretty decently high there as well. And with your hodograph with that big angle like this here, definitely favorable environment for some tornadoes there. Always favorable for a tornado. Keep in mind, this means it's a favorable environment for tornadoes. It's not a guaranteed. It just means it's favorable environment for tornadoes. That's what these watches are these days, Like a tornado watch, it just means it's a favorable environment for tornadoes. That's just what it means there. LCL height there is also pretty good. there as well. It's pretty low. Got some decent wind direction of height there as well. Pretty good strong winds across the mid levels where you're low of a jet there as well. And the effective layer STP with sign in here. It's a little bit elevated there as well. Between a 2 and a 3 here. You can see here, it does show a chance for strong tornadoes, but we'll just say there's a low end chance at this point there as well. So that's a pretty good analysis there. And you can see here, we got some decent numbers near the triple points here across portions of Kentucky here. 485 here, joules per kilogram of CAPE. You know, you got a pretty decent hodograph here, so that's good. Critical angle, that's a pretty good number there. A little bit lower in tornado threat there. You still have a decent amount of wind shear there. CAPE is also a pretty decent amount. You do have a little bit less with wind direction of height. There's also a chance for damage wind to the surface. Typically, when you see something like this here, that means strong winds there. When your red line and your green line is far apart like this just means strong winds. And it doesn't have to be like that wide or whatever to have a damage wind threat, but definitely shows a damage wind threat there as well. But the NAM does typically, overdo things as well. So kind of take this a little bit as a grain of salt. Just to keep in mind that the NAM can overdo things there as well. A little bit higher numbers across southeastern Georgia there. And you can see here, not too bad of a photograph here. Although your critical angle number is pretty high there as well, as high as a 67. Lower amount of wind shear though. Not as much CAPE here. I mean, your dew points and temperatures are decently high. But this is probably more favorable environment for probably strong to maybe a low end severe thunderstorm. Not really that favorable for tornadoes, even though there's a pretty good critical angle number. And also your lap rates as well, pretty low numbers. It's not that favorable for tornadoes. Probably say the primary threat could be damage winds there, just by looking from a photograph there. So let's take a look at bulk shear. This is kind of like wind shear. This is from the surface to 500 millibars there, so that goes into portions of the atmosphere. And really higher the numbers, the more favorable environment really for the tornado threat and also for the damage wind threat there as well. And as you can see here, not that high numbers here. I mean, well, actually, yeah, it is. I mean, numbers really above 35 knots, you got a pretty decent environment there. But when we get numbers as high as a 77, those are pretty high numbers there. It's a impressive amount of bulk shear in the atmosphere. So this is something we call a load-in instability and high shear environment here. And these things can be hard to predict as well here. And this is definitely, even though you don't have high CAPE numbers, you do have very high wind shear numbers here. So that can really bring up that tornado threat there as well. And also, damage winds there as well. Definitely a lot of wind shear going on in the atmosphere, no doubt about it. This is also kind of like that wind shear. This is Helicity here. This is storm relative Helicity. And as you can see here, generally above 100 would be a decent environment here, and we're getting numbers doubled than that. I mean, across the warm sector here, I mean, especially across Alabama here, where some of these thunderstorms are going to be at. Pretty decently high numbers. But as you get across, Kentucky, I mean, look at these numbers. I mean, very high numbers as high as 700. So those are some very high numbers there as well. This is the Energy Helicity Index. This is a combination of Helicity and CAPE. And as you can see here, pretty decent numbers across, Louisiana there. Got as high as a 1.4. Pretty good hodograph here. This is a pretty good skew T here overall. Pretty good critical angle here. Definitely a favorable environment for, at least for, a few tornadoes there. You can see here, especially getting into Friday afternoon, you can see are pretty decent numbers as far north as around Louisville, Kentucky here, along the Ohio River there as well. So pretty decent numbers there, although it's actually kind of low. Now this is Supercell Composite. This is, the parameters to show how favorable it is for supercells. Higher the numbers, the more favorable for supercells is for the environment. And as you can see here, you got numbers as high as a 5, a 6, so some pretty decent numbers there. Getting into south central Mississippi, and unfortunately, most of this is going to be happening overnight. And wow, this is what I'm talking about overdoing things, and this is one of these things. That is that's just a ridiculous photograph there. That's just ridiculous. Critical angle pretty high. You got quite a bit of wind direction and height there as well. A lot of wind shear. I mean, if this verifies there, I mean, that's chance for a strong tornado. But again, the NAM can overdo things. As we kind of continue on there, your Supercell Composite numbers do come back up, come back Friday afternoon. Cold front's back here. And we'll definitely have to watch some of these regions here to see if any thunderstorms do develop there as well. So just to keep in mind in that as well. And that's pretty much it for the severe weather side. The GFS is a little bit similar here as well. But this is not as high res here, so it's going to show lower numbers. We'll look into the Supercell Composite very quickly here as well. And as you can see here, like I said, it's going to show lower numbers. It's just as high as a 1. Although it does show pretty decent numbers when it gets into Central Tennessee there as well. We'll take a look to a sounding real quick, and you can see here, not that favorable for tornadoes. Just by looking at photograph, the critical angle numbers a little bit low. Wind shear 32 knots. I mean, it's not that favorable for tornadoes, but it is favorable for damaging winds, however. So just keep in mind of that. And keep in mind, even without thunderstorms, it's going to be windy. Now, the European model has been slowly backing off on these wind gusts. You can see it's now showing wind gusts as high as 40, 45 miles an hour. Like it was showing before, it was showing some areas showing 50-mile-an-hour winds. Although when you get in the top of those mountains, yeah, you can definitely see that there as well. And here's the GFS, and you can see here wind gusts as high as 40 miles an hour as well. So if you do have any, inflatables, Christmas decorations, if you're still going to have them out, you're going to have to take them down or, take them inside there as well. And here's the overall look here. You got your winter storm threat anywhere from west central Oklahoma across east central Kansas, getting into portions of Iowa, Wisconsin, eventually getting to Michigan. Ice storm threat, pretty much the same thing, just southeast of that. Your flash flood threat, pretty much for just north of the Arctic Texas region, eventually getting to the Lower Ohio Valley. Then your severe weather threat, pretty much across Dixie Alley there as well. Maybe getting to portions of the Ohio Valley there as well. But anyways, guys, this is all for you guys today. Hope you guys did enjoy this video. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. If you really do like my channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications so you never miss an upload. If you guys have questions about this, you can put a comment section down below. I'll answer you guys' questions. I'll see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.